Let's start in the middle. It is the night of September 26th. I am playing Crusader Kings 3, and I just want to conquer Iberia. This sets off a chain reaction of bad thoughts that sends me into an existential doom spiral. But enough about that. Let's skip to just before the end. It is the night of October 2nd. I have just started The Outer Wilds. I don't know much about it, other than it's hailed as a new modern classic. Some essayists I follow call it their favorite game of all time, but they also say you can't talk about it without having finished it. I need to play a new good game to take my mind off some stuff. So I'm booting it up now so I can finally read those essays and watch those videos from those people I like, so I can hear them gush about a game that affected them so. So with that said, go play The Outer Wilds, and come back to this video when you're done. Now for the ending. It's October 12th, and I have just finished The Outer Wilds. I am feeling things. Things that can only be expressed by talking about the game in a depth that will be deeply spoilerific if you have not played the game. So I repeat, go play The Outer Wilds. It's not even a matter of this game is so amazing you need to play it, it's just that the experience of The Outer Wilds is so dependent on the player being blind to its world and its themes. If you're spoiled for first experience, then when you do play it, you'll be looking for said themes, rather than letting them sneak up on you. A bit like a Batman nerd watching The Dark Knight introduce Harvey Dent and saying, "Oh, I think I know where this is going." If you need even a baseline pitch, then I'll say Outer Wilds uses a time loop mechanic and environmental exploration. You're not solving puzzles so much as putting together a corkboard of clues, which turn into signposts telling you where to look next. Also going to repeat the trigger warning at the start, that this video is going to deal with some heavy subject matter. Subject matter that is apparent if you've played The Outer Wilds and its DLC. Wink, wink. If you're not ready for those feels, then come back when you are. I realize I'm severely limiting the views on this video, but sometimes clearing the air is more valuable than watching a view count tick up. So without further ado, the spoiler-heavy, subject matter-heavy section of the video begins now. Thank you for your time and interest in my words. Hey, how many of you tried this? What's going to stick out about a game as highly praised as The Outer Wilds is how frustrating it is to play on a fundamental level. Much of the game is about navigating in 3D space with very finicky physics, and it takes a good few hours to get used to piloting your ship or controlling descent with your jetpack. A lot of my early deaths came from crashing my ship into something because I forgot to match velocity, or just forgetting where the sun is in relation to my mortal body.
Oh, that's a little bright.
That's just the core gameplay. And that's not even getting into minor frustrations, like forgetting to equip your spacesuit before going outside, getting lost in the ancient cities, or getting cocky around ghost matter. The worst moments are when you spend so much time getting somewhere that you realize you still don't have enough time to actually do the thing you went there for. And since the game is about literally resetting you back to square one on each death, it can feel aggravating. I'd be making so much progress if I could just accelerate without this slippery momentum. If I could just make this jump in the Hanging City without getting yeeted into the black hole. If I could explore the Sunken City without encountering this specific cactus. If I could just leave my ship on Giant's Deep without the cyclones launching it into orbit. If I could boost just a little past the anglerfish. If I could see in the dark. If I could see in a jellyfish. If I could just. But you pick yourself up and keep going, because each loop you're still generally accomplishing something, even if it's basic survival knowledge. You keep pushing yourself because the mystery is so engaging. The Nomai texts are written very human. One may almost say distressingly human, These aren't the scrolls of the ancients dictating the fall of Hierophant Slismar during the Summer of Broken Dreams. These are someone's AIM messages. You can track entire stories and relationships through these texts, often out of order due to how they're scattered across the solar system. The Nomai bicker, they fall in love, they die. You begin forming a bond with these people eons separated from you because of how much their dialogue feels real. Ask any archaeologist, and they'll tell you the majority of texts you'll find from buried cities aren't new Dead Sea Scrolls, but jokes about dogs walking into bars or complaining about Ian Nasir's cringe fail copper. Then there are your fellow astronauts in the Outer Wilds ventures. They'll likely be the first people you head to, since the signal scope handily directs you to their exact locations on each planet. You never see their faces, and their animation is severely limited, but so much is conveyed through their dialogue. You can come back to Ryback and share discoveries and watch them geek out. Feldspar praises you for daring adventures, and then there's Chert. You ever talk to Chert right as the sun is exploding?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
He stands in hard contrast to Gabbro, who is phenomenally blasé about everything, including the time loop, which he is also aware of. When I first realized this, I thought, sweet, now I have an ally in this. Except Gabbro can't really help. Their ship got blown away, and he's probably too baked off his gourd to provide much assistance. It feels like a depressing dead end, another if I could just... Until you talk with him a few loops down the line, and he gives you the ability to meditate, which basically works as a next loop now button. And this is wildly important, because it helps you out when you're otherwise stuck. Maybe you're trapped somewhere, or drifting in space with no ship. Meditating helps you move to the next loop quickly and peacefully, because the alternative is to wait helplessly for your own demise from asphyxiation or heat death. It helps limit those moments of abject failure, because you're able to get right back to the thing you screwed up, rather than waiting however long for the reset, all the while dwelling on what went wrong. Thematically, it's useful because the only way you had to force a reset before was to willfully cause yourself enough bodily harm until you died. Which is, suicide. It would have been easy for the devs to lean into this, like Groundhog Day or Happy Death Day, whoops, I screwed up, better throw myself into the sun! But instead, they gave you a way that's peaceful to go out. One where you just kind of lay back and accept it. Because that's what the Outer Wilds is really about. Accepting setbacks, and, by extension, death. Let's go back to the middle. Crusader Kings 3 is a grand strategy game simulating medieval Europe, most of Central and East Asia, and North Africa. You pick a ruler and a start date, and just kinda do whatever until you hit the end date. If your ruler dies, you take over playing their heir. All sorts of shenanigans can be gotten up to, and it's way more compelling than looking at a map and some source engine character models would suggest. What's important is that once you know the systems well enough, it's an easy game to play. Not easy mechanically, but easy in terms of how much brain space it occupies. The only goals are the ones you set yourself, and as long as you don't make any totally boneheaded moves, you can coast along just fine. This was a campaign I had started a while ago as one of the tribal lords of the Canary Islands. My initial goal was to see how far I could get starting as one of the smallest land masses on the map. The game gives you a list of things to do, depending on your culture and religion, but they're more suggestions than anything. My current lord gets really religious. Like, absurdly religious. A few trips to Mecca and he was down with the Imamness. So I think, you know what this guy would do? He'd try to avenge the Battle of Tours. What's the Battle of Tours? Go to Wikipedia and come back, you unwashed slime. Doing that would require conquering the Iberian Peninsula and southern France. A tall order, but my guy has so much piety that the holy orders are begging him to pop off. So I do. I get some strong allies and declare a holy war on Lyon. People out there for Outer Wilds analysis, bear with me. I swear this is going somewhere. I win the war and start divvying up the lands to my loyal Ashrai vassals. But oh no, I forgot about the peasantry! For various reasons in Crusader Kings, you may have to quell enemy factions within your realm. It's often upset siblings who think they'd be better on Daddy's throne. This particular faction doesn't like that I'm forcefully converting them from their oh-so-good Catholicism. You can get factions off your back by targeting the vassals leading them, either befriending or bribing, imprisonment and torture, or just kicking their ass on the field of battle. Or, if you're desperate and non-committal like me,
cheat.
Cheat. Just like when I beat Half-Life 1 with God mode enabled, sweetheart.
There's a mod that lets you get a strong blackmail hook on someone, which outright dissuades them from joining factions. I also save scum like a motherfucker, because Crusader Kings is the kind of game where just changing one action can open up a new timeline, and that random event that crippled your plan, like an unexpected death, just never occurs. See, but my issue is, the peasants are a nameless rabble. They don't have someone I can spawn a strong hook on, and as far as I can tell, Daddy Pika's cheat menu, that's what it's called, doesn't have a fix for them. So I think, okay, it's just some peasants. They'll put down their rebellion and get back to planning the next conquest. The armies spawn, and by the Black Monolith, they are 3 times greater than my current army and holy orders combined. So I reload to an autosave a few in-game months before they spawn, and panic. I've never done holy conquests in this game before, and if the aforementioned cheating and save scumming didn't make it clear, I'm a bit of a noob. I don't know what to do to stop the doom stacks of peasants appearing and undoing my conquest. So now I'm doing the math on how far back I'd have to go just to avoid this, and it's hours of playtime, because all of my autosaves are with the rebel faction already in play, and my only manual save is long before the Holy War. And I just keep rolling my eyes and sighing because I just want to hold the land I have. I just want to conquer Iberia. I just want an easy time. If I could just make the problem go away and keep on playing, if I could just make the right random decision that unlocks the avoid your fuck up option, if I could just save scum enough and cheat enough, and maybe I can go back to having my brain switched off for a bit, which I desperately need because... Alright. Let's go to the beginning. It's September 21st, and I am playing Lies of P. I swear this all matters to talking about the Outer Wilds. I like Lies of P well enough. It's not the Bloodborne 2 I wanted, but it's enough. I haven't had a game like it in a while, and it's easy to lose a few hours in. The bosses are hard in a not fun way and demand a lot of attention. The American housing market is in shambles, so I currently live with my parents. Earlier, my mom left to take my dad in for a routine surgery on his eyes. I didn't say goodbye because I was busy playing Lies of P. The stupid Watchman boss was getting my goat, but I know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, well, maybe I don't. I call it a night and get ready for bed. I get a call from my mom. My dad has suffered a cardiac arrest after leaving the hospital. They don't really know what caused it other than his history of high blood pressure. They have him stable, but it could be hours until he's good to leave. She tells me not to worry and that I should go to sleep. I sit on my bed, have a think about what I should do. I decide to stay awake and wait for their next call. The next call I get, my mother tells me that my father has passed away. My only response, I didn't say goodbye. September 26th. I've abandoned Crusader Kings and I am going to bed. I never figured out what to do. I'm lying in bed thinking about how to save scum my way out of this rebellion, and suddenly, irrationally, my brain decides to link this to my father dying. What if I could redo September 21st? What if after the first phone call I simply went to sleep, confident that everything was alright? What if by worrying about the call and staying up, I somehow influenced that outcome? What instead of cooking a frozen pizza to help me stay awake, I made a good health decision and had some baby carrots and spinach? What if this is my punishment for something? What if this happened because earlier that day I told my boss I was hard at work on a project, but in actuality I was looking up Lies of P builds? What if I had been playing Lies of P and I had just said goodbye when he went to the hospital? What if I had just said goodbye when he went to the hospital? What if I had just said goodbye? If I could just say goodbye! The thing about grief is that it's weirdly one of our most rational emotions. Trauma has occurred, and now you feel bad. A loved one was here, now they are gone. Your brain is hurting from the sad chemicals being released, and you so desperately want to go back to before the valve was turned on. I wasn't hot on Echoes of the Eye, the DLC for the Outer Wilds, but there's this little moment that gets me. If you go into the lodge at Endless Gorge before switching out the lights, you can see the silhouette of one of the ghost birds clicking through a slideshow of their home planet. This is majorly odd because they're currently in a simulation of said home planet, but maybe it's not enough. When you learn the full history of the ghost birds, you learn that they destroyed their home planet to chase the eye of the universe. They can't go back to it. All they have are pictures and facsimiles. It all seems mundane, but you'll miss it when you see the photographs. I think the biggest moment I had playing The Outer Wilds wasn't a puzzle revelation, but a narrative one. You come across all this Nomai tech set up to launch the probe you see at the start of the game. The orbital cannon is powered by the sun going supernova, which the Nomai have figured out a way to trigger manually. Thanks to the Ash Twin project, they can create a stable time loop of 22 minutes, enough time for the probe to pick up the signal to the eye of the universe. After running this loop enough times, they'd get the coordinates and break the time loop just before triggering the supernova device. It's pretty slick, but it did leave me a lingering question of, well, if they're currently working the time loop, where the hell are they? The Nomai cities are ruins with skeletons all about. You'd think the Outer Wilds Ventures would notice all these pieces getting into position, or at least the Nomai would have commented on Timberhearts supporting space-traveling life. Did they just not care? Then you board the Sun Station, and learn that the supernova device never actually worked. The Nomai really did die off millennia ago when the Rube Goldberg time loop machine is only just now activating because the sun really is going supernova. Naturally. You can't stop this. It turns out your mission this whole time wasn't to stop the sun gobbling the galaxy, but to break the time loop so that the universe and you can finally die. That's the revelation of the Outer Wilds. You are going to die. But isn't that what the game has been conditioning you for this entire time? All those little frustrations, all those surprise ends, all those moments where you cursed not having enough time, those all resulted in your death. Death is all around and omnipresent in the Outer Wilds. So it'd be a little weird if the ending was a cop-out, yay, you stopped the inevitable decay of the universe! Death is a lot like the quantum moon. It's out there, moving about, affecting other people, but you don't really think about it until you're looking at it, confronting it. It's also like getting spoiled on a narrative, wink wink, because you could just go passive thinking, well, if I know how it ends, then what's the point? A revelation of a similar nature to the Sun Station was when you uncover the secrets of the quantum moon, which I think is the game's best clutch of puzzles. After plumbing some incredibly hard-to-reach depths of the Nomai ruins to reach the end of a puzzle chain, and are greeted by the Nomai Solanum, who's been stuck in quantum limbo on the moon for who knows how long. I thought this would be the moment the revelations would be heaped upon me, but Solanum's dialogue is very conversational. They're so excited to meet another alien and share their knowledge, but their knowledge was of stuff I already knew from reading other Nomai texts. Solanum gives no indication that they even know that the time loop is working, or even what the time loop is. I thought to myself, why did this matter? It matters because finding Solanum there is what gets her to appear at the ending. The same is true for the prisoner from the DLC and all the Outer Wilds adventure team. If you never met them, then they don't appear. They were all part of the journey, they all mattered because they're what gave the adventure meaning. We're all going to die. Emphasis on the we. For as lonely as the game can get, you're never really alone. You can pop on the signal scope and listen for the other explorers. Your first walk through the village on Timberhearth, when the game's just teaching you the mechanics, is filled with these familiar conversations and well wishes. That doesn't stop being a pleasant experience just because you learn about the heat death of the universe. All our songs will be silenced. But what of it? Let's get the band back together. Maybe the signal coming out of the eye of the universe was the music of the last band that played there. We all turn back into star stuff, but we still leave behind little legacies. You may not matter on a cosmic scale, but I bet you matter a whole lot to your best friend, or your students, or that person you held the door open for when their arms were full and they were having a real shit day. And honestly, the real reason to meet Solanum is so that you get this line, which is the one that hit me the hardest.
It's tempting to linger in this moment, while every possibility still exists. Unless they are collapsed by an observer, they will never be more than possibilities.
Here's some fun Murph lore. The passage of time scares the absolute shit out of me. It's one of my top fears, right next to empty expanses of nothing and swarms of tiny creatures. When I was 6 or 7, I used to lie in bed at night and cry myself to sleep at the thought of getting older and having to give up toys and trick-or-treating and playgrounds and, everything that my world was built around. When I was 19, I got emotional at getting rid of my childhood alarm clock. Literally all of my mornings started with that sound. I can't just get a new sound. Did our time together mean nothing? And that's with stuff I can easily replace. With things that are irreplaceable, like a father, well, see my breakdown after failing to conquer Iberia. And I think this game helped me process a good chunk of that fear, give me an understanding to move forward. You can't go back to what you knew was normal, you just make a new normal. And until you move forward and see what life has in store for you beyond this point, you'll never know what that new normal is. You're just stuck in this old normal with a huge missing component. And if none of that mattered, well, then I wouldn't be hurting like I am right now. All this to say, I love you, Dad. I loved you then. I love you now. And I'll continue to love you. Right until the end of time.